So yes, I'm exactly standing in Amsterdam right now. So I saw some pictures at your background. It's not snowing. That's a little too early for the time of the year. It is now the autumn, so we have the beautiful leaves turning yellow, turning orange and red and brown and all these colors. So, but it's not a bad day. Although the whole morning it was raining, so I'm really happy that it's not raining anymore. But it's always in Amsterdam. Fingers crossed. And thank you for the introduction, Susan. I'm feeling a little pressure about your words, but of course I'm gonna try to do my best to give a tour around. I think a very special person. And as Susan mentioned already, we will not go inside the Anne Frank house itself because that's not allowed. That's the first thing. And then the second thing that's important to know is I will walk you through Amsterdam. We will see some beautiful parts. There are a lot of people on the streets because it is a beautiful day, but don't worry, I have done this before. But another important thing to know, a really important thing to know is that during the tour, I will use some parts of Anne Frank's diary. So I will read you some of the quotes, some of the things that she was writing between 1942 and 1945. So to make it even more alive. And we are gonna follow the family. So and at the same time, you will see some parts of Amsterdam and hear some of the stories. And I'm starting over here. I'm now standing in the city center, in the famous neighborhood of the Jordaan. Originally, the area where the poor people in Amsterdam used to live. Nowadays, it's one of the richest areas, but it's a beautiful area. A lot of people on the street. It's very, very vibrant over here. So, and of course, during the tour, if you have questions, feel free to ask them because I've done a lot of tours about Anne, also about the Jewish history in Amsterdam. So I'm not saying that I know everything, but I can, of course, try to give an answer to most of your questions. So I will, in about 30 seconds from now, start the screen. Then we're gonna see what I am seeing at the moment. So you will see a beautiful Amsterdam, and I will shortly also introduce you, of course, to Anne Frank and some of the backgrounds and how this all started. So let me see, where is that? I always have to find that button to change the screen. And there we are, live in Amsterdam. Now you're seeing what I'm seeing. You see a man.
We are actually a little frozen, Stefan. We're just seeing
no.
your little switch. I know.
Okay, are you now? Let me know when you see me.
I will tell you when we get our live Amsterdam shot. We're still seeing you a little frozen with an interesting expression on your face.
Okay. I'm just trying.
I think it's because now we see it. Now we see it, but we need to move into an area because the bandwidth is a bit low where you are, but we are seeing the outside.
Okay, you're seeing the outside. You're seeing statues now, or of different
people,
or not?
Statues, but the bandwidth is a bit low, so we just need to go to an area. There we go. Now we're back in business.
Okay, we're back in business. Okay, thanks. I was just thinking, oh no, not at the moment that I'm starting the tour. Then no more. No, okay. We are in Amsterdam. We are seeing here, by the way, a little cute car that is used for a lot of the older and disabled people in Amsterdam. This is a car for 2 persons, by the way. So, and sometimes you see them even with 4 persons sitting in this tiny car. But let's go to the canal where we are. I'm gonna walk you out of there and just exactly let me know if there's no reception anymore, because then at that moment I can immediately stop. Let's go to the other side. I have to be a little careful because there are a lot of people on bicycles in Amsterdam all the time. And as you can see, I'm standing over here alongside one of the canals. The sky is getting blue, beautiful clouds, always beautiful clouds in Amsterdam. And for this tour, of course, we're gonna focus on, I think, the most famous girl, the most famous women that has been living in Amsterdam. And I'm standing now, by the way, next to the Houseboat Museum, one of the million museums that we have in Amsterdam. But for the story of Anne Frank, we have to go back in history. And we're going back in history to 1929. On the 12th of June 1929, Anne Frank was born in Germany. So she was not born in the Netherlands, she was born in Frankfurt. Frankfurt is a city in Germany, not so far away from the Dutch border. And she was the second kid of Edith and Otto Frank. And she had one sister named Margot Frank. And her sister was 2 years older than her. And 1929, she was born in 1929. And 1929 is at the same time also a very interesting year in world history, because 1929 was the year, if you ask people what happened in 1929, most of the time the first thing people are saying like, oh, that was the year of the financial crisis, wasn't it? And yes, they are right. It was the year of the financial crisis. The worldwide, of course, started in the US and then was going all over the world. And the country of Germany was the European country that was hitten the hardest from all the European countries. So what happened is that a lot of the loans that Germany got after World War One were recalled. So in 1929, Germany almost got bankrupt. So, and because of that, a lot of people were really in a bad situation. They lost their jobs, so they lost their money, they lost their jobs. So it was also at that moment, of course, if a lot of people are unhappy, and that was exactly the moment that there was a new party coming up in Germany that we now know as the party of Adolf Hitler. That was in 1929. And what was Hitler doing with his new party at that time? He was mainly blaming the Jewish population. He was blaming the Jewish population or scapegoating them for almost everything that went wrong in Germany. So, and with that blaming, with that scapegoating, in 1932, he won the elections. And in 1933, he became the new prime minister, at that moment still, the new prime minister in Germany. And of course, this was already there for a longer time, but literally in 1929, that was the moment for a lot of Jewish people to think, do we want to stay in Germany for a longer time? So, and a lot of them decided, no, we don't want to stay here anymore. Let's move to another country. And a lot of them came to Amsterdam because Amsterdam was already for a very long time quite famous as a liberal and open city, a city where you could just go to and live a happy life. So a lot of Jewish families came and they started living in the southern part of Amsterdam. And the same, by the way, for the Frank family. Otto Frank, he was a businessman, and he decided at the end of 1932, okay, I have to leave Germany, and because the situation is getting worse and worse, and bit by bit we are getting an outcast in the society. So in 1932 he came, and in the start of 1933 the rest of the family came over, and they started living in the southern part of Amsterdam, a beautiful part of Amsterdam, by the way, in a new neighborhood. And Anne and also her sister, they were coming there. Anne was only 4 years old, and they were growing up in Amsterdam. Started, of course, to speak Dutch. Were going to school. Had a very good youth. Had a nice youth. Had a lot of friends. Were making friends also in that new neighborhood. So and yeah, they were allowed to do to grow up. And it's good to know that the Frank family, they were Jewish, but they were not really going to the synagogue that much, and they were doing some Jewish traditions, but most of them not even. And that was with a big part of the Jewish population in Amsterdam. So, but they were going to school, had a good life over there, and then they were living also in a nice neighborhood, nice 19th century neighborhood. And then we have to make a step on to 1940. 1940, May 1940, that was the time that Hitler was already several years in Germany, and he has been building up his army. And in 1940, he started to attack the Netherlands. So May 1940. And not only the Netherlands, by the way, also Belgium and France were all attacked at the same time. And the interesting thing, or the sad thing maybe also, is that it took them, it costed them only 5 days to take over the Netherlands. Only 5 days. So it was really going very fast. And one of the main reasons is people are always really wondering and saying to me, was that really the case? But yes, it was the case. Imagine the Nazis were coming into Amsterdam, into also this beautiful canal inside inside the city. They were using all their machines. They were using tanks. But the Dutch soldiers, when they were going to war, and I am not making this up, this was real, the majority of the Dutch soldiers were going to war on their bicycles. So you can imagine, we didn't have a chance. We didn't have a chance. And the other thing is that um, that the Nazis were also bombing our second biggest city. So we're also bombing our second biggest city. So it was with the so-called blitzkrieg. So already after 5 days, we said like, okay, we surrender, and we are not gonna. And then the Nazis took it over, and soon after that, also the situation of Jewish people in Amsterdam started to change. Before, it was really good, but after the Nazis took over, it started really to change. So they also became the out group, and their life really changed. So um, and was even writing about this. So, and as we all know, there was as for most of us know, there was one day that she got her diaries, and that was, to be precise, in 1942 on her 13th birthday. Her birthday is in June, on the 6th of June. So on the 6th of June, 1942, she got her she got from her dad a diary where she started writing. And by the way, already it's good to know that her birthday on the 6th of June was with some friends were there, but only her Jewish friends were allowed to come. So that was already a change in how it all started. So and she wrote that it was one of her nicest presents, by the way, that she got. But it was a birthday with gifts, with presents, but only with her Jewish friends. And already some days after she got her diary, she was starting to write about the situation in Amsterdam. And I'm now will read you a little part. She wrote, Jews have to wear a Jewish star. Jews have to hand in their bicycles. Jews are not allowed in the tram anymore. Jews are also not allowed to ride in cars, not in private ones either. Jews are only allowed to do their shopping between 3 and 5 p.m., except in Jewish shops with a sign saying local Jewish, local Jods in Dutch. So this is already showing how the situation for the Jewish population was really changing. And it was changing fast. So 1 week they were not allowed to go to the cinema anymore, and some weeks later they were saying, okay, you now have to wear the star so we can always recognize you. So they were getting the scapegoats again. After what happened already before in Germany, now in the Netherlands it was the same. So what happened then is that Otto Frank, he was thinking, okay, I have to find a solution for this. So he talked with a friend, and his friend was advising him, maybe you can get a visa to get your family to the US. He tried that. He tried it even 2 times, but he got denied. And he was, by the way, not the only one. A lot of Jewish families in the Netherlands and also from other European countries that tried to get a visa in the US were denied, because the US government at that time didn't allow a lot of these, what they were saying, or these Jewish refugees to come and live in the US. So sad thing, but that was the policy in the first years of the war, while they were knowing already what type of things were happening to the Jewish population. So that was not successful. So we had to find another solution. And that other solution was to make a hiding place. He was working on the Prinsengracht. And that is also, by the way, the canal where we are walking right now, this beautiful canal over here. And he had an office over there. So he thought maybe it's a good solution to make a hiding place together with some of his employees. He was making a hiding place, and they were preparing, so if necessary they could go there. And look, by the way, how beautiful the sky is. Just these days in the autumn can be extremely beautiful, and it looks like it is painted by the Dutch masters. You can imagine where their inspiration was coming from if you look at these skies. So they were preparing the hiding place, and then something else happened. On July the 5th, 1942, so that's only a month after Anne started writing in her diaries, the family got a letter, or to be precise, Margot got a letter. And that letter was from the Dutch government. A letter from the Dutch government, and in that letter, she was asked, or they were asking Margot to come some days later to a certain location, to a certain place. And from there, she would travel. So she had to bring some clothes, and from there she would travel to. I'm just, by the way, going on the other side. I'm seeing that oh no, it's possibly sorry. No, that she had to bring some clothes with her, and then she should start working for the Nazis in Germany. So, and of course, we now know what that working means. That means just one way into the camps, and then maybe working some years, and a lot of others were killed immediately. So they were getting that letter, and that was for the family the sign. That was for the family the sign to say, okay, let's go into hiding immediately. So, Anne Frank wrote about this. She wrote about this the day that they got that letter, that she started packing. She wrote, Margot and I started packing our most important belongings into a school bag. The first thing I stuck in was this diary. And then curlers, handkerchiefs, school books, a comb, and some old letters. Preoccupied by the thought of going into hiding, I stuck the craziest things in the bag. But I'm not sorry. Memories mean more to me than dresses. And then the next morning on the 6th of July, they started walking early in the morning, and they had to walk about 1 hour. I told you before that Jews were not allowed to use bicycles, taxis, cars, public transportation anymore. So the only way was to walk the whole way from Amsterdam South all the way to the Anne Frank House. It's an hour walking. And you may be wondering, Stefan, what are you all showing over here? What is this area? Yeah, it's a beautiful canal of Amsterdam, but I'm now walking exactly the route, or the last part of the route that the Frank family was walking. So this is how they got into the hiding place at the end. So, and she wrote also something about it. I will start walking again, and then I'm reading at the same time. Let's be careful for the cars coming here. No, Anne wrote about that early morning. Fortunately, it wasn't as hot as Sunday. A warm rain fell throughout the day. The four of us were wrapped in so many layers of clothes. It looked as if we were going off to spend the night in a refrigerator. And that just so we could take more clothes with us. No Jew in our situation would dare leave the house with a suitcase full of clothes. And you can maybe imagine that if they had to wear their star, and if they had like a big closet with them, then maybe some people would think like, oh, they're maybe going into hiding. So they didn't want to risk that. So just all the layers of clothes over each other. And Anne wrote, I was wearing 2 undershirts, 3 pairs of underpants, a dress, and over that a skirt, a jacket, a raincoat, 2 pairs of stockings, heavy shoes, a cap, a scarf, and lots more. I was suffocating even before we left the house. And also imagine that July was summertime over here. So it's not a cold winter day like you saw on the picture of Susan before. No, it's in the middle of the summer. And she wrote, while walking in the pouring rain, the people on their way to work at that early hour gave us sympathetic looks. You could tell by their faces that they were sorry they couldn't offer us some kind of transportation. The conspicuous yellow star spoke for itself. And then, about an hour later, they arrived in what we now call the Anne Frank house. And that is very nearby also the church that we're seeing right now. I have to go over this busy street. We see at the other side, by the way, the Wester Church, the Westerkerk. But I will take you to the other side. If it's green, you see people in Amsterdam, they don't follow rules all the time. They're just going to the other side already. But I'm just waiting. I don't want to get hit by a car while telling you,
Stefan,
all the stories.
While you wait, we want you to be very safe. So I want you to focus on that.
Yeah.
I just want to share with everyone as you're crossing the street that this, in fact, is the 75th anniversary of the publication of Anne Frank's diary. So there's been a lot of interest, clearly, this year in particular. There always is, but this year in particular, it is the 75th. And there have been in Holocaust museums and others all around quite a lot about this. So now you're safely across. I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for saving me. No, so we're now very nearby. The Anne Frank house is at the other side, and I'm taking you now at this side so we can see it from this side first. The only thing is that since about a month ago, and these are these things that you cannot control as a as a guide, that the house itself or the front part of the house is behind scaffolding. So we cannot completely see the house at the moment. But I brought some last moment. I thought, okay, I'm just gonna bring some pictures so we can even see it how it's normally looking. So, but they came over here, and you have to imagine that the Anne Frank house is a typical Amsterdam canal house, and with a typical Amsterdam canal house, also like the ones that we see over here at this site, you have to imagine that all the houses, also like the ones over here, were built in the 17th century. So they're about 400 years old. And they were built for rich traders and merchants. And these rich traders and merchants, they wanted to live here, and they had enough money to build houses. But while you see in other cities and also in other parts of Europe, rich people were building very big palaces, or very big houses at least, or mansions, or however you're calling it. But in Amsterdam, most of the houses, and also we can see that here in front of us, imagine rich people, then the houses are quite narrow. And it's also the house where the Frank family was staying was narrow as what we see over here. And the main reason for this, and for that we have to go back to the 17th century. In the 17th century, when you wanted to build a house, then you had to pay taxes. And the tax in Amsterdam was based on the width of your house, of the frontage of your house. So the wider your house, the more tax you had to pay. So what were people doing? They were building their houses very narrow and very deep at the same time. So the average Amsterdam house, like the one that we see over here, is about 15 feet wide and it's maybe even 90 feet deep. And the same goes on for the house where the Frank family was staying. And it is here at the other side. It's a little hard to see while the church bells are now saying that it's 4:30. No, but over here, this house over here, that is the front part of the Anne Frank house. Just this little piece over here. And what
And
I'm going to show
Stefan,
you.
we
Yeah.
do have photographs. Catherine can help and assist. We have the
Yeah.
photographs, so if you'd like, she can send up
Yeah,
whatever
if
you
she
like.
if she can do that, that would be perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so what you see on this picture, yeah, you saw it also on my screen at the right, the bigger building, that is the museum nowadays, and then there is one smaller house at the left, and then the second house, that is the frontage of what we call the old Anne Frank house. So that is the front part. And if you can now click it away again to actual, thank you for that. That was fast. I also have over here a picture of how it looks inside. And here you can see, so this is from the side part, the same house. And here you can see how big it was. So the front part was basically the office and where people were working. And the back part over here, that's what we call the annex or het achterhuis in Dutch. That is where the Frank family, together with 4 other people, by the way, were hiding. And they were only hiding on the levels that you see in green. So these 2 levels and a little part of the attic, that was it. And together, that was 450 square meters. Imagine 450 square meters, and you're living there together with 8 people for over 2 years. I mean, we're now coming out of a situation in the last 2 years where we had in some countries or some states, we had to stay home because of COVID. You couldn't go out, but most people had a lot more space than only 42 square meters for 8 people. So it was really, really, really very, very small. And the second thing is that not only was the place very small, also the front part of the house that I was just showing you, the office, was still in use. So the colleagues of Otto Frank were working over there, and not every one of them knew that there were people hiding, in the back part of the house. So what was happening? In the meantime, I'm also going to show you. Look, there's a beautiful swan over here on the side. So there are a lot of swans on the Amsterdam canals, and they're always coming nearby the boats asking for food. But it's wonderful to see one over here. No, but they were living on this very small area, and so with 8 people, and at the same time, all the windows had to be closed. They couldn't watch outside, so they also were staying inside, and they had to be quiet all the time. So what Anne was writing about this, she wrote, "Not being able to go outside obsessed me more than I can say. And I'm terrified our hiding place will be discovered and that we will be shot." So, but then still, she was always positive. She was always positive because she wrote this, and then just 2 days later, she wrote, "I don't think of all the misery, but of all the beauty that still remains." So she was literally showing her feelings all the time. So, and in the meantime, while we're here, I'm also going to show you another beautiful part of Amsterdam. Look at the sky. Look at the sky right now. We're really lucky. It is the end of the day. So I'm just going to show you one of the side canals. This is one of the side canals going into the Jordaan area. Beautiful area again. But it's wonderful with the sun going down. This is the beauty. This is the beauty of Amsterdam. So a lot of people are taking pictures also over here.
Stefan, we do have a quick question as you're showing.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So we know that during the day they needed to be quiet and in hiding. And I
Yeah.
know you'll talk about what happens in the evening, but Deborah wants to know, were they able to see anything? Could they look out and see the beautiful sunsets and the beautiful
Yeah,
house?
that's okay. That's really a good question, because I just want to tell you something about that, because they had to stay inside, and because most of the windows, I'm saying most of the windows, were blinded, so it was quite dark inside. So and of course, during daytime they had to be completely quiet. So during daytime, when people were in the office, so that meant that they had to wait every day till about 5:30. So from 9 in the morning until 5:30 in the evening, they had to wait. And how did they know the time? That was with the church. So the church bells of the Western Church were chiming. They're chiming every 15 minutes. We just heard them before. So they're chiming every 15 minutes. And that was for them the way how to know the time at at that moment. So um, so Anne and the family, it was for them very important for their life rhythm. And Anne Frank also wrote several times about the Western Church. So, for example, she wrote in July 1942, that was quite early still, she was just arrived. Father, Mother, and Margot still can't get used to the chiming of the Western Tower clock, which tells us the time every quarter of an hour. Not me. I liked it from the start. It sounds so reassuring, especially at night. And then in August 1943, so almost a year later, she wrote again about the church and the tower. And she wrote, "We've all been a little confused this past week because our dearly beloved Western Tower bells have been carted off to be melted down for the war. So we have no idea of the exact time anymore. I still have hopes that they will come up with a substitute made of tin or copper or some such thing to remind the neighborhood of the clock. We, by the way, now know that yes, the Nazis removed the clocks, but they didn't use them in the end in the war. So nowadays, the clocks that we're hearing from the Western Tower Church are exactly the same as the ones that Anne and her family were hearing. So, and of course, you can imagine if you have to stay quiet the whole day. That was 1942 to 1945. 1942 to the end of 1944. So 2 years, and it was a time where we did not have Netflix, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have gaming computers or all such things. So what were they doing the whole day? They were staying at home, waiting until it was 5:30, waiting until they could make some sound again. And in that time, and look how beautiful it is. But in that time, they were they also could not talk, they could not walk, they could not use the bathroom. So they were just waiting until 5:30 and reading something. And it was also the time that Anne was, of course, writing in her diaries. We have, by the way, really one of the most beautiful evenings in Amsterdam with this with this light. This is quite unique, I have to say. Um,
So
no, so
Stefan,
that's something.
and by the way, this is quite unique. It is, we go on so many tours and this is just magnificent. But Rose has a
Yeah,
question about exactly
yeah.
what you're saying now, Stefan. Um, were they then kind of flipping it? Were they sleeping, aside from reading and writing, were they flipping their time during the day and night? Were they sleeping during the day and then awake at night? And also, were they then cooking, going to the bathroom, personal hygiene, all that stuff just at night and doing
Yeah,
basically nothing during
part.
the day?
Yeah, that was during working days, how they were living, not completely upside down, but yes, they were changing it a little. So exactly, using the bathroom before 9, and then if they could make sound, it was in the evening. So and I was just saying, like, most of the windows had blinds, but there was just at the attic, and Anne really loved to be at the attic. And at the attic, there is a very small window, And from that small window, she could just look outside. And from there, she could just see the top of the Western Tower. So that's also for her one of the reasons why she was writing several times about the church. I'm now gonna, yeah, this is so beautiful, but I have to walk because I want to show you some more parts. And there are too many people now over here taking selfies with
And as
stuff.
you're making your way over there, Rose also wanted to know, were the books brought in before, or were they brought to them over a 2-year period by someone else?
Yeah, that's also a really good question, because of course they were living there with 8 people in total, and there were in total in the Anne Frank house there were 5 helpers. So 5 of the staff of Otto Frank, 5 of them knew that they were hiding over there, and they were helping. They were helping with bringing food, with bringing clothing, but also by bringing books. So, for example, Anne really, yeah, she was reading a lot because it was one of the only things that she could do. So she was reading a lot, and she was asking every time to the helpers, mainly to Mipris, one of their helpers, to bring her new books. So every time new books, so she could read again. Look at this. This is really amazing. Sorry, I'm a little surprised with how beautiful this night is in Amsterdam. So this is, I said it already, it is unique. And one of the other things, by the way, that she could see from the little window, and we're now, by the way, in front of the house, but there's, yeah, what I said already, there's not a lot to see. But one of the other things that she could see from that tiny window was a big chestnut tree. A big chestnut tree that was standing, and oh wait, I'm just going to show you. They just placed some things over here from exactly what they could see. So this was the original view that you could see from the office. So from the office, sometimes in the weekend days, they could go there and look outside behind the blinds. So this was the office originally. And I was saying already that Anne was writing several times about the Western Tower. This is what she could see. This exactly view from a tiny window on the attic of the Anne Frank house. That was what she could see, and that's why she was writing about it several times. And then over here we have the original entrance, Prinsengracht number 263. So nowadays there's a small plaque with Anne Frank house, but this is what the original entrance to the office. So not into the house, into the office. Okay, so that was interesting that they placed it. I didn't see that before. Okay, I'm just gonna walk. I was starting to tell about the chestnut tree because I also want to tell you a little more about that. So the chestnut tree is also what she could see from that same little window. Sorry, from that same little window, she could see a chestnut tree, and that was for her, together with the beautiful church, the sort of the point of reference that there was still a world outside, that the seasons are changing, etc. So, for example, in May 1944, she was writing, "Our chestnut tree is in full bloom. It's covered with leaves and is even more beautiful than last year." And then a little later on, when she was on the attic together with Peter, and Peter was the boy where she fell in love with later on when she were in hiding, and she is writing, "The two of us looked out the blue sky, the bare chestnut tree glistening with dew, the seagulls and other birds glinting with silver as they swooped through the air, and we were so moved and entranced that we couldn't speak for a while." Beautiful how she wrote that, by the way. Imagine, she wrote this when she was 15 years old. I mean, when I was 15 years old, I could not write like this. So that was about the chestnut tree. And you have to imagine, and now just slowly going to the other side, that over here we have the front part of the Anne Frank Museum nowadays. And there's a row of houses, but at the back part of these houses, there is a courtyard with the back gardens of these houses. And in one of these back gardens, there was the place of the chestnut tree where Anne was writing about. So that was at the back. And the interesting thing is that this tree has been there until quite recently. So, but what happened in 2005? The government found out. The government found out that the chestnut tree there in the back was having a disease. Was having a disease, and they were saying we have to remove the chestnut tree because it can be dangerous. So and this came in the news. This came in the news. And then several Amsterdammers were saying like, yeah, no, no, please don't do this. Don't remove the chestnut tree of Anne Frank. So what they were doing is they were starting to get money with a crowdfunding campaign to get money from people to save the tree. And they were making a whole construction around it to save the tree. So that construction was there, but of course the tree was slowly dying. And they were thinking, with this construction, we can maybe hold it for maybe about 15 to 20 years more from 2005. So until this time, it would have been there. But yeah, the tree was dying, and there was a neighbor. And that neighbor, he was living, or he is living, in one of the houses that we're now seeing over here on the site. And the tree is basically in his back garden. So what he did is he started in 2007, he started to collect the chestnuts that were falling in his garden. And what he was doing, he was placing these chestnuts on eBay to sell them. He thought, oh, I can make money with the chestnuts of Anne Frank, where she was writing about. So this came again in the news in the Netherlands, and a lot of people were extremely angry about this. And they were saying, you cannot do that. This is making money from someone who died. So this came in the news. And in the end, this man said like, okay, I made a mistake. So what he did is he donated all the money that he got to the Anne Frank Foundation together with the lost chestnuts. And what happened then, the Anne Frank Foundation thought like, okay, this is a good idea. This is really a good idea. So what they started doing is collecting the chestnuts to grow Anne Frank chestnut trees. And nowadays, the Anne Frank chestnut tree can be found all over the world. So, for example, there is an Anne Frank tree in almost every Holocaust or Jewish museum all over the world. They are in the US, they are in Israel, they are in Berlin, for example. And not only that, also all over the world, there are Anne Frank schools named after Anne Frank, at least 50. And all of these Anne Frank schools got a little Anne Frank tree to grow on the terrain of their school or next to their school. So it's, I think, a really beautiful way of reminding this wonderful girl with the tree that are now planted, that are now growing all over the world. So that's what they were doing. And then in the end, in 2010, there was a big storm around this time of the year. And this storm was so tough. So the Anne Frank tree itself so the tree fell down in 2010. After 170 years, it was 170 years old. And then they had to remove it. So they removed the tree. But the interesting thing is, they removed the tree. So we are thinking that it's dying. But what happened now 2 years ago, again, and everything around Anne Frank, it's always news. And I'm going to show you. I have a picture of this too. I think, let me see, while we're watching still at the, and then of course at the moment that I want to show you something, I cannot show it. Okay, then I'm gonna tell you that the Anne Frank tree is now, it's just a little piece that is left, but there's now a little new tree growing since 2 years next to the tree. So it is starting to live again. It's really a wonderful way. But back to the family. August 1944, August 4th, 1944, they got captured. the Nazis, the Dutch Nazis, with help of the Dutch police, they found out, in a way, they still don't know exactly why, but they found out that there were 8 people hiding in the back parts of what we now call the Anne Frank house. So they were captured, brought to the prison at first, and later on to the Dutch transportation camp of Westerbork, and later on all the 8 that were captured were brought to different concentration camps. So Anne and Margot both were first brought to Auschwitz, but later on to the camp in Germany of named Bergen-Belsen, and that's also where in the end they died. So we don't know exactly the date, but we know that somewhere at the end of February 1945, so just 3 months before the war, that both Anne and Margot died because of a disease. So typhus, most probably it was typhus. And I was telling you already several times how important this church of Anne was. And that is why nowadays, and there are always people standing around, but that's why nowadays there is a tiny statue here next to the church of Anne Frank, and with the years that she lived, 1929 to 1945. And why next to the church is because she was writing so many times about the Western Church and how important it was for their life. So, and then from the 8 people that were in hiding, only one of them survived. And that was Otto Frank, the dad of Anne and Margot. He survived. He came back to Amsterdam in 1945. And he was waiting, hoping that his girls and also his wife were coming back. He heard already soon after that his wife Edith did not survive, but he still had hopes for Anne and Margot. So what happened, Otto? He came almost every day. He was going from his house. He was not living so far away from where we are right now. And he was walking to Amsterdam Central Station, hoping that he would see Anne and Margot again. But of course, we now know that it was for nothing. And then at the same time, he was meeting some of his employees again. And one specifically was one of his helpers, Miep Gies. And Miep Gies, she told Otto, okay, at the moment that you were captured, when the Nazis were away, we got into the hiding place, and what we found on the ground, or what I found on the ground, were the diaries of Anne. So he handed them over to Otto, and Otto was reading all the thoughts and everything, of course, of his youngest daughter, and he was surprised because there were a lot of things that he never knew before. So. But he also he was also asking a friend to read it. And this friend was saying to him, Otto, if I were you, I would do something with this. This should be published. And at first he didn't want, but later on he decided, yeah, this is maybe a good idea to publish this. So the first book was published in 1947. First only in Dutch, by the way, and then translated in 1948 in German, and also later on in English. And then it became one of the most read books that is still existing. And it also makes it that every year about 2 million people are going inside the Anne Frank house to see it themselves, to feel it themselves, because it's still, of course, a very important book. So I'm just gonna show you my face again, because I wanna tell 2 more things, because I've been personally doing this tour a lot, and I've also because of all what I studied, and of course I have been reading the diaries myself several times. So also to find the things that I wanna use to tell the story about the Lost Walk. So, but one of the quotes that I really,
And
really
Stefan,
love.
I know that we want to see your face while you do
Yeah,
this. Right now, we're frozen seeing the beautiful view. So you may
it's
want to turn it around one more time because it just
okay.
froze just a little bit towards the end. So I know that it's very important
Okay,
to see this part. If you can flip it around one more.
I'm trying. I'm trying to
And
flip it
while
around again.
I know. And just one question also while you're doing this before you read it, Marna's asking for after they were in hiding, and so Otto Frank obviously was not doing the his business there. What was
Yeah,
the who was the owner? And I guess the owner was not aware that they were in hiding above them.
true. He was not. He was not aware. He was not aware. So no. So it was basically and the family was in hiding there, and only some of his helpers knew, and the rest not. Also not the owner of the building. So do you now see my face or not? Still
We're
not
not.
yet.
We're in an area with low bandwidth, so I think that may be the problem.
Okay,
So
okay.
So we're seeing a teeny tiny little picture that we did in the beginning until you moved. So I think you may be in an area that's eating up your
Okay.
bandwidth. But
Yeah,
I
I
know that
never.
this is, hang on everyone, because this is an incredible part that you'll learn a lot.
And
Okay.
Susan, Rose asked, did they ever find out who or how the Germans found out about their hiding place?
I think Stefan addressed that earlier,
Okay.
where they don't know. They
Okay.
Yeah,
they don't know.
we still
We don't know.
there are a lot of theories about it, but still we still don't know exactly.
Yeah.
So okay, wait. So I'm still you still have the same? You still only
Yeah.
Yeah,
see
we
that
still have the small
okay.
bandwidth. I think you're moving in an area. So
Okay.
while you're finding that, and maybe you can just read it to us, even though we can't see
Yeah.
your face.
Yeah. So I prefer always to see my face for this last part, but maybe it's coming back. I'm now walking away to another location. I see the cell towers are next to me, so it should be working well again. But sorry if it's not. No, but there are two things. There are two things that I still want to tell you at the end of the tour, and of course it's also some more time for more questions if you have them. But now one of the things is that she wrote in 1944, and this is one of my favorite parts of the diaries. She wrote, "When I write, I feel relief. My pain disappears. The courage returns. But I wonder, will I ever write anything of importance? Will I become a journalist or a writer? I hope so. I hope with all my heart. By writing, I can clarify everything, my thoughts, my ideals, and also my fantasies." So imagine she was writing this again when she was only 15 years old, not knowing that nowadays she is one of the most famous writers in the world. So yeah, she has become a famous author in the end, not knowing once she was writing this. And then the other thing, and this is has become, I think, my life motto. Also, after doing a lot of these tours. So, and it's just one sentence. It's just one sentence, and I really think it's very important. And this is something that we can all do, not only me, but all of us. She wrote, "How wonderful it is that nobody need to wait a single moment before starting to improve the world." And as for me, since that time, since I wrote that, since I was reading that, the most important sentence that I've been reading in my life until now, because I think that's really a very important thing to do. So, what I do, because I'm doing this tour virtually, you're now seeing it virtually, but I'm also doing this tour in real life sometimes with people, and I have some guides now that are also doing this tour. But what I'm doing from all the earnings that I'm making with doing this tour, part of it is donated to the Anne Frank Foundation, because I think it's very important that the Anne Frank Foundation is keep on doing very good work, and with the words of Anne Frank, to fight racism, to fight discrimination, but also all the terrible things, anti-Semitism. Think about all these kind of things. So um, so it's really something something very important that I'm doing all the time. So I'm gonna read it one more time. How wonderful it is that nobody needs wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. And I really hope that a lot of the people that are now viewing will do the same, because we're not there yet. And anti-Semitism and racism and discrimination, it's all coming back and it's still there. And we have to keep on telling the world and doing something about it. So that's the last thing that I wanted to say. And I can imagine that there's still some more questions. So feel free
Stefan, I just want to
ask them.
thank you so much. I'm going to hand it over to Nicole in just a minute. I know, you know, I know at the end we usually see your face, and usually this time I'm hysterically crying. But I will tell you, what you do is so vitally important. And to My Health Angel, to really assemble this amazing group of travelers today, and you are all travelers, you are all curious, you are all incredibly wonderful group. We love your questions, we love your engagement. And thank you for the love back, by the way. We've been reading all your wonderful and kind comments. What you're, you know, we go on these incredibly enjoyable tours each month with My Health Angel, but this tour in particular, and especially with what is happening in the world today, especially what's happening in the United States just these past few weeks, is so incredibly important in telling this story of Anne Frank. Some people have said we need to reread the diaries, and I know that I've been doing that. Is just incredible. I want to thank you because this brings it to life, and having these live stream tours and being able to walk in the footsteps of her family is just an amazing reminder. And also, you know, a lot of new things that we have that we've seen today through your eyes and through your steps. So I want to thank you so much, Stefan. Thank you also for your contributions to fighting racism and anti-Semitism and everything else by your contributions. We're also in it with you that way. And thank you, Nicole. Thank you, My Health Angel, for allowing us to share this platform with your incredible members.